for large institutional clients especially, providing energy to their buildings requires a huge infrastructure. Providing all the resources that a building requires a huge infrastructure. And for clients who are making significant investments in non-building envelope infrastructure, reducing the demands of those facilities can have a huge impact to their bottom lines, not just in initial construction, but in ongoing cost. There's a maintenance aspect to it as well that is important to the client. So I think clients need to know that these technologies exist. It's up to this group to educate clients about the technologies and how they can be implemented effectively. Most people don't want to be on the bleeding edge, if you will, of the technology cycle, but they want to be on the cutting edge where they can see a measurable return on that investment. And so that's sort of up to us to educate them that there is a return to be had with a lot of these technologies, as you said, that are on the shelf today.
And Susie's point was a great one. It has been a difficult sell to clients to get them to look at cost-effective energy upgrades. And so I think that climate's going to change here in the future, because regardless of who our next president is going to be, both candidates are on record as saying we have got to address climate change. And they're both in favor of a carbon cap and trade system. So I think the price of energy is going to go up significantly over the next couple of decades, which is actually good news, because we know how to save energy. It's cheaper to save energy than it is to generate new resources. So by getting our society to start thinking thrifty instead of being so wasteful, will actually increase the financial security of this country. Think of all the billions of dollars that we export elsewhere because of energy waste. So addressing climate change is going to strengthen our economy, not hurt it.
I was at a conference a couple of years ago, and this very large design build firm had decided that we talk about carbon credits as it relates to the work we do, but we don't talk about it internally. So he took a initiative to look at how they spend money and what they do, and how internally, just operating the business, what do they do to impact the environment. And the first thing he did was pull the travel budget and pulled how much they were sending people on planes. And so he picked their top 10 clients that were reimbursing them for travel, and said, would you have a problem with us not traveling? What would be the impact? Here's what we think it would do to our impact on the environment by not putting people on planes and doing more web conferencing and things like that. And it was an interesting study that he went through, and it eventually became his full-time job in the firm. If you have a great idea, it becomes your job.
So, careful what you get excited about.
but he found within the firm, just they're out there preaching to the marketplace, sustainability and carbon footprint, but internally, he looked at printing. He looked at the travel was the main thing. He was blown away about how much they spent on travel. And when they asked their top clients, would you mind if we didn't meet every week or every month and we did video conferencing, they said, absolutely, that's fine. But no one asked.
Mm-hmm. That's very
no one asked that question. Forget about the expense. Let's talk about what it does. And the fact was that they weren't asking their clients. They weren't involving their clients in that decision.
There's also a very serious barrier now with what's known as the split incentive. The people who often make the decisions about the design and installation of energy-saving technologies are not ultimately the ones who pay the bills. And so, a lot of commercial buildings are designed and constructed, and the first owner is not the one who's going to be owning the building over time and paying the bills, and the building gets flipped. And so we've got to true up that system so that there's not the incentive to build cheap, inefficient energy technologies in buildings, but that we're looking at a longer window of time. So, because the ultimate owner is paying handsomely for the energy waste.
I think you're absolutely right. The difference between a long-term institutional owner of a facility or a corporate owner of a facility versus a facility that's based on market rates. And it really becomes the incentive that drives us towards efficiency there is usually the regulatory environment and what's required to meet the code.
in the code as the worst building I can build by law. It's not the most energy efficient building or the most profitable building for long-term operation.
I had a retail developer tell me one time that the building was just a shed to cover up all the inventory to keep the rain off the product. You know, so when you have an owner that's incentivized by building a shed to cover up product to keep the rain off of it, you'll get.
We're seeing more and more that owners get us on board early to assist with the designer to help spec products that are readily available, that are, you know, we joke with the whole value engineering term as cost reduction. Value engineering, really, what is it? And yeah, oftentimes a value engineering process does reduce cost, but it could enhance value elsewhere, and that's really where our role comes in. And our corporate philosophy is we're never going to tell an owner they have to do this. We just try and, you know, provide as many options as possible and give them, you know, the benefits to those options and how they can choose the. You know, it may not be the cheapest option, but the best option for the life cycle of that facility. So the topics we're talking about right now, BIM and LEED, really is pushing decisions to be made earlier. And what's driving the construction trends right now is earlier decision making, which is easier for a construction person to say that because we want to have everything before we go to construction anyway. But it is important to the LEED aspect, the sustainability aspect, and the BIM efforts.
The data that the owners want to make decisions about the increased cost and what my return is, a lot of it is still very soft. When they get into detailed discussions about a specific technology to solve a specific problem, they may have great deep data on that to say, okay, well, there's a great ROI for us to do that. Let's do that. But when they look at a whole building and all the different aspects, I think we take buildings for granted a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, so to speak, in a building and lots of details. And I think when you start talking to owners at a very high level about return on investment, they struggle. Most owners don't know where their spend is on a building. If you ask them by percentage based on, you know, any type of classification, where are you spending your money and where should you get the most return, they really don't know. So I think they're making good decisions around specific opportunities to get returns, but at a macro level, they don't quite, the data's not there. All they hear is cost. You know, anytime you say new, interesting, technology, yeah, the dollar signs just keep building up.